Hi everyone, this is Sam with TurnOneMagic, and we're starting a new series today where I look at 3-0 cube decks and talk about what they're trying to do, and yeah, pretty much that's basically what it is. These are decks that we drafted with our cube group online, and I think it's important to take a look at winning decks when you're starting as a player and try to understand why they're winning, but also see if you can find improvements in there. Some decks are, I'm not going to say perfect, but they're as good as they can be considering the draft pool. Maybe there were mistakes made during the draft portion, maybe there weren't. That's not the point of this, is to look at the draft. It's to look at what happened at the end and see the result of it. So, with this deck in particular, we have a Jund deck, and that's kind of a loose Jund, but not completely wrong, as it's a Reanimator sneak attack ramp deck, and it's pretty sweet. There's a lot of awesome things going on here. There's the elf package at the beginning, and Green Sun Zenith is included in that, with some other ramping cards with literal rampant growth, Lotus Cobra, Talisman, Cultivate, Garuk. And then we have a couple other cards earlier on too, such as Channel, which enables the bigger guys at the end here, along sometimes with Creator Hoof and Woodfall Premise if you're at 5 mana, and that's all green mana. Not likely, but not impossible. Or rather, probably not going to be in turn 5 or turn 4 or whatever it may be. And then there's also the Reanimator package 2. So this deck is pretty interesting, and I started with this one, well, because it's the first interesting one I found. Not interesting, but like the one that has like a lot of different contrasting factors. Like you could make a lot of different decisions based on the sideboard with this deck. There are some decks that, as I was first going through it, that were pretty black and white. You know, if you are playing aggro and you have all your red cards and then whatever your second splash is, and the cards that you aren't running are things like Moat or whatever, then yeah, you got where you got to. But here there are a few different directions that you could have gone with it. Now, I understand what they're going for with Sneak Attack, and I think I could see a world where maybe Sneak Attack is either a main deck plan that you side out or that you side in. But there are some problems that come with it. One is that the mana is a little tenuous for Sneak Attack, like not 100%, but also, you know, it's kind of weird because it is and it isn't. So this is why I like this deck, because it's like you could make a decision on going hard into Sneak Attack or going hard enough or just including it, and it makes the deck completely different due to what you have to do with your mana base. It makes the black cards a little more difficult, as you only have Swamp, Teemo, and these two up here. Again, not impossible, but in a game of variance, it's something to consider. You have 2 mountains and a taiga taking the place of what could be a number of swamps or forests or whatever it may be, and that does make a difference. It's not 100%, it's not going to be black or white in that way, but it's something to consider. Granted, I do like the Sneak Attack with the 3 in Kozilek, Emrakul, and other Emrakul, and especially since this Emrakul right here, the Promised End, he can be reanimated as well, which is really nice. Also, Sneak Attack's pretty interesting with Recurring Nightmare, which leads me to thinking about Necromancy in this deck. Now, because of the Sneak Attack, there are some sort of necessary evils being included here, one being Rampant Growth. Rampant Growth I don't think is too great in this deck. It's the worst ramper by far. It's only really in there because of Sneak Attack, and I think there are some other options that could be available too, as the Reanimator package is kind of, I'm not going to say lacking, but it folds to Wraths, like if your elves get beaten up by a Arc Trail or just straight up Wrath of God, then Recurring Nightmare becomes a little bit worse. So Necromancy has some consideration there too. And these are suggestions for cutting the Sneak Attack if that's the direction you want to go in. And again, I'm not entirely sure, because actually the Talisman Impulse as well, I think is black-red. So that's a little bit more consideration for these as well. Now, if I wasn't cutting Sneak Attack, if I was going to play it no matter what, there's some consideration for cutting maybe this Nissa. It's probably the one that does the least for most of the deck. And I think this deck is more of a Recurring Nightmare deck than it is a Sneak Attack deck, being that you don't really have many ways to find your creatures to sneak them in. You kind of need to either naturally draw into them, or you have to Fauna Shaman them in. So there may be some more consideration for trying to get a Necromancy, Scavenging Ghoul, maybe even Life from the Loam, but that's a little bit more tenuous, since you only really have Terra Effort Expanse. I didn't really say that correctly. But either way, but you could throw in Triskelion. Like there is a world where you cut Sneak Attack, you cut these 3 huge guys over here, or you keep Snake Attack and cut the 3 big guys, or you cut maybe the biggest one or the 2 that don't reanimate, and then maybe throw in like Triskelion, Ellersnorn, throw in Shambling Vents, Corehaven, or not Corehaven, yeah, maybe Corehaven, and brush land, take off some other lands over here. But that's a tenuous option too. This seems like one of those decks where there isn't really a correct way to build it, or rather, if there is, it's a risk versus reward type of principle. So, another card that you could be considering here would be Eureka. And that's due to the fact that we have these 5 huge options here. But I actually like leaving Eureka in the sideboard. It's a great card to bring in from the sideboard versus whatever other decks may be out there. Now granted, you are probably, if you're playing this deck, one of the few cheat decks in the cube, as you're the green, so natural order, probably not happening. You have all these huge guys, so Sneak Show, you have the Sneak, literally, and the Show and Tell probably is a little bit worse about this. There may be a Tinker deck. And there may be another Reanimator deck with, like, Dimir as the colors. But there are situations, because you don't have the card draw, you don't have the card advantage that you can bring into your hand, that the Eureka is a little bit worse. Living Death is also another one to consider too, and it would probably take a lot more to bring this in versus Eureka, but I would also bring it in versus aggressive decks or attacking decks or whatnot. This deck doesn't have a lot of removal. In fact, it has literal 0 creature removal in the main deck. And in the sideboard, there's not much either outside of Never and Kolaghan's Command and Triskelion, which I would add also if I was adding in Living Death. Along with the Necromancy too. So you could throw in maybe Triskelion, Living Death, Necromancy, cut these 3 big guys, or cut them and run something else, and that could be an option as well. You could also cut the Sneak Attack, the Rampant Growth, and the 3 large Eldrazi, throw in Living Death, Necromancy, Ooze, maybe Triskelion, and that could be an option. Shun to go for it. And this is my smooth transition because we lost the last minute of audio on this video. But that's pretty much wrapping it up anyways. There are probably some more options that I'm missing. And if you have any suggestions, if you have any different ideas, things you would do differently, or if you agree, let me know in the comments. Just say, hey, I think you're stupid as heck, and I hate everything that you do. Now, don't say that, please. But, you know, just leave a comment there, one way or the other. Like, subscribe, all that BS, blah-de-blah-de-blah. And thanks for watching. Again, this is Sam with TurnOneMagic, and we will be back with more of these videos. It was fun to do. Yeah. All right, bye, guys. Thanks.